So I really do know better. Um, in about an hour, Nolan and I are headed, and for those of you hopping on, by the way, just say hi and think it's so much better when we can connect in these live streams. I think the last one, that I did from Alaska, I was talking about being high touch with our high tech, and that's so a part of what I'm talking about, meaning, when we talk about doing live streams, or when we are doing live streams, it is that much more enjoyable when people are actually interacting with us. So definitely say hi, and if you are listening to the replay, say hi as well. So I know better. Here's what I wanted to share with you today. And as most of you know, I talk a lot about doing the hard things. Hold on one second. Doing the hard things, right? I talk a lot about doing the hard things. I talk a lot about moving from problem to solution in order to express to the world who we really are. So that's what a lot of my, what my passion lies in, but it's also a lot of what my work is around. And so the message that I got loud and clear today, I really laughed at myself because, by the way, does that not make for such a happier life when we can just laugh at ourselves, where we can, in the moments of where we're self-coaching ourselves, we go, really? Did I just think that? Did I just do that? After everything that I've learned, after everything that I've done, right? We say these things to ourselves. How could I have done this? Or how could I have thought this? And I had that moment today because in about an hour, I am headed to a funeral. And in fact, I'm going to move this inside because it's going to be a little bit louder than I thought. So in about an hour, I am going to a funeral, a funeral / memorial. And for those of you who have followed my my shares around my hospice work, I do volunteer hospice work, which has been such a fulfilling and such a beautiful experience for me. Well, my hospice patient, I've worked with about 3 hospice patients, 2 of which have passed. The very last person who passed was by the name of G. I'm just using her initial. That's, for those of you who have followed along, you will probably remember me sharing about G. G passed, and I am going to go to her memorial. But the thought that I had, which I couldn't believe I had, was, Nolan's home from school. He's on summer break, and he doesn't have camp today. And for a split second, I thought to myself, well, no, I won't take him. I'll just go to the memorial myself. And then immediately I caught myself. Maybe 3, 4, 5 seconds. I caught myself and I said to my own self, no, you're definitely going to take him. This is what your life is about. Meaning this is everything that you've taught him, everything that you've lived with him, everything that you've lived yourself, is not being afraid of the tougher things, but heading straight into them with, just with a full heart, just ready to give love, ready to learn some more, ready to experience all that life is, and therefore all that we are. And so as I had this, this sort of response to myself, like, Michelle, how could you not want to take Nolan? Of course you're going to take him. You and Josh have always spoken to him about death being a part of life, right? So not being other, and not being something that is wrong, not being something that is something that we want to push away from, but that actually death, memorial services, again, all of these different, sicknesses, whatever it is that we normally, deem as hard or not wanting to talk to our kids about, or waiting until they're a certain age, that all of these things are a part of life, and that the more that we can actually share the very real things with them, take them on the ride with us. In other words, take them, take them with us to experience these different parts of life that we don't normally, again, deem or define or coin as, joyful experiences or enjoyable experiences. The more that we can do that, at least for me, I know, and again, we each know our kids, right? What is appropriate for them? What is age appropriate? When it's time to do X, Y, or Z. But I know for me, and maybe there are some of you out there who grew up in a similar way. For me, as a child, my grandparents, because we lived with them when my mom, brother, and I moved from Guatemala. We lived with them for about 8 years. And so my grandmother really became sort of, another mother figure. And she was around during school days and would drive us to school, pick us up from school while my mom would go to work in San Francisco. And she, one of the things that she did that was so important and that I didn't realize was important back then, but that I've definitely have realized again and again and again, and it's part of not only the way that I parent, but the way that I coach or consult as well, is just this, really trusting, really trusting that the person that you are speaking to, in this case, her speaking to me as a 5-year-old, as a 7-year-old, as a 10-year-old, as a 12-year-old, she really trusted me with the truth. She trusted me with the truth. And again, did not know it then, couldn't thank her then, couldn't even thank her in my 20s, started to get it towards I remember 27, 28, thinking to myself, wow, Oma did me such a service by just telling me the truth and never really hiding things from me. And so because it did, such a good thing in building me up, I have obviously taken it into my parenting with Nolan. And, the last 5 years has been such a big, lesson, such a big time or season of learning, where with Dino's death, my mom's death, where I have, for the first time, really sort of probably awkwardly at first, like, wow, how am I going to share Dino's death with Nolan? I had woken up that morning and gone downstairs, and the police had let us know, what had happened. And Nolan was upstairs in the hotel room in Miami. And I just remember, I had 3 minutes as I was walking up the elevator to figure out, how am I going to tell him this? The same with my mom. He was at summer camp, and I had then I had longer. I had about 2 hours to decide, how am I going to share this hard thing with him? How am I going to share that he just lost this gorgeous, beautiful woman in his life who gave him so much love, who was an Oma to him? So in those 2 hours, I figured out what I wanted to do. I remember grabbing a couple of candles, and I grabbed a prayer, and I, sort of got myself emotionally in a place where I could pick him up from camp, and then I could take him to a park, and I could hold him in my arms and just do the thing, just tell him the truth, tell him what was happening, or I should say, tell him what had happened, and therefore what would continue to happen, likely, in his emotional body. And so Oma, she did such a beautiful thing with me. In other words, she, in her trust in me, in knowing that whether I was 5, 9, 10, or 12, that I could handle it, that I could handle the truth. Again, age appropriate. We each know our children. Hey, Sunita, mwah. Well, hey, oh my gosh, I haven't seen you in so long, Gianna. How are you? Oma did such a great thing, and really entrusting in me, just trusting that I could handle age appropriate, whatever the news was, whatever story that she had to tell me about my past, and it was, let me say, thank you so much. Let me say that it was a very interesting past. Some of these stories that Oma shared with me were not easy stories. We're not talking about, the cute stories about me growing up. There were some of those, but the hard stories, the stories about, my dad, my biological father, being abusive to my mom, and that's why we left Guatemala, and sharing with me, through her tears, when that Pan Am flight, she would say, Michelle, and she would tell me this story over and over again throughout the years. When that Pan Am flight, Michelle, took, when the tires lifted off of the ground in Guatemala, and I knew that I had saved you guys. I knew that I had supported you guys to keep living the life that you really wanted to live, in safety, with love, with opportunity. She said, and she could never finish the story, you guys, because it's such an emotional story. Here she had truly saved her daughter and her granddaughter and her grandson from a tough situation. And so I think, again, we each, as I was saying before, I said hi to a couple of friends who just hopped on. I'm so happy to see you, ladies. Each of us knows our children. Each of us knows at what age they might need or want to hear something. Each of us knows the words to use. Each of us knows, the amount of affection that child might need in a particular situation. So, this isn't a blanket, hey, this is great for everyone, but I know that the golden truth is truly that the truth is good for all of us. The truth is great for all of us. And again, I think as parents, as elders, meaning as leaders, as aunts, uncles, you name it, if we can find a way, if we can find the words, if we can find the affection, if we can find that quality time that is needed to share with a child or to share with anyone, this is not just about children, what the truth is, what their truth is, what stories they come from, but therefore what stories they can now tell, or what stories they can be a part of, in their future, because of the strength, because of the resilience, that they have, maybe unknowingly to themselves. I didn't know at 5, 7, 9 that I could take the stories that I came from, that I could take the history, the history that I'd come from, and that I could use those stories to create a story, which now I see that I've created, to create opportunity, to use that resilience to fuel and fund my creativity, which is exactly what it's done. Everything that has happened in my life, all of the uncomfortable moments, every single passing, my father's kidnapping and his passing, the recent passings, of course, in any of the emotions. I remember being a teenager, sitting and writing poetry, missing my dad, really being sad that we had left him, and how that must have made him feel, to come home and find his 2 children and his wife gone. And we never saw him again. So even those moments of teenagehood, of feeling a lot of emotions and, figuring out like who I was, and again, where I came from, and all of the feelings that came with it, right? Because there is so much, not just during teenagehood period, but there is so much emotion when we start to sort of dissect, not just where we came from, but like how other people felt about that story. So when I think about what my dad felt, potentially, my biological father felt throughout those days, throughout those hours, coming home and not finding his family there, that was a lot. It felt like a lot. However, again, in those moments, I never knew at 15, 17, as I was writing poetry, missing my dad, or writing poetry to my dad, saying I'm sorry, for leaving, even though, it wasn't my choice, but it was a good choice. Now I see it was a great choice. I didn't know that I could take all of those stories, that I could take all of those rings, of my own tree of life, and that I would feel the strength, literally, that I would feel the strength of what those roots, because that's really, the hard times, the hard moments, those stories, that history that we come from, it can really actually support us in rooting deeper into ourselves, rooting into more strength, rooting into, not only like rooting for truth, in other words, being a cheerleader, being a champion for the truth. Like, let's tell our kids the truth. Let's be a walking symbol of truth. That, we don't realize, I didn't realize back then, that not only would I be rooting for it, in other words, like be doing this in my family, telling Nolan the truth and everything, but the truth. What is that phrase? Again, like taking him to the memorial service today because my hospice patient passed away. Not only that I would be rooting for it and be a champion for it, but that I would feel, and I'm sure some of you feel this way, but really feel the roots of that truth helping me stand up taller, helping me be able to do the work that I do in the world, helping me be of true service, helping me have a happy marriage, helping me really love motherhood. Why? Not because I'm keeping the truth, not because I'm not allowing Nolan to know the truth about death, life, about his mama, about his, his biological grandfather, about what, not that I'm keeping that from him. For me, that doesn't feel strong. What feels strong, or what feels, let's actually scratch the word strong, what feels supportive to me is always sharing the truth. And so today, as part of that truth, I take Nolan, who is on summer school. I could have very easily said to myself, but he's on break. Let me have him enjoy his summer break. I'm not going to take him to this memorial. But that would be a disservice because I want to show him about life. I don't want to just show him about a particular part of life. I want to show him all of life. I want him to see it and hear it and feel it from me. I want him to see it and hear it and feel it from his dad, from his papa, and his grandparents who are still alive, and his aunts and his uncles. I want all of us as the leaders, as the elders, as the aunts, uncles, mother, father figures, for us to be able to tell the village known as, the kids in our community, the kids in our household, the kids in our families, the truth is a huge honor. It is a huge honor. And so, yes, could he have, been home and enjoyed his summer break for today, and in other words, not gone to the memorial with me? Sure. But what feels, and I'm feeling it right now, what feels more wholesome, what feels more true, and what feels like is really going to be a connecting moment for he and I, for future, meaning like later on this evening, future conversations around what we just did together, is me taking him. Like, that is not only true, that is going to also just help our communication, our conversation, our relationship, and knowing, as I look back on my motherhood when he's 20, when he's 30, when he's 50, that I was able to be a part, that we are able as the adults, as the leaders, as the elders of our villages, of our homes, of our communities, that we were a part of that child, of that human being, understanding that in this case, that death truly is a part of the life cycle, and that it is okay. It may not feel okay in our bodies, but that it truly is okay. It is okay to feel extremely sad when somebody passes away. It is truly okay to, mesh and mix a memorial service today with a party tonight, with laughter 2 minutes after we walk out, with, a sweet hug or a tender moment in the memorial, sitting next to each other at the memorial, whatever it is, that all of it has its place, and meaning that it all is and can be interwoven, that it is not. I remember, when I was younger, like thinking, well, it wasn't okay, if somebody had just passed away, that night it wasn't okay for me to laugh, for me to sing, for me to be joyful. And in fact, what I have not only shared with Nolan, but what I have absolutely seen to be true over the last, since I've experienced, some the traumatic losses in my life, which is when I was 5 years old up through, these last few years, losing my mom and brother a couple years apart, is is that we hold it all, and that, you know, we are human beings. We get to be it all. I can cry at a memorial service, and then, you know, that evening have an amazing night, you know, celebrating life, celebrating G's life, celebrating my life, and, you know, just being in gratitude that, you know, that our life can be this real, that our life can, that we can not only speak about these things, in other words, that I can come on here, that I can talk to Nolan about it all, about how we're sad, about how we're happy, and how the more that we are able to hold those things, talk about those things, be a part of those things, you know, or have those things be a part of who we are, a part of the words that we use, a part of the way that we express, again, the crying, the laughing, the whatever, that the more that we're actually able to hold. So, because if we're trying to hold the truth from our child, from ourselves, really, we are doing a disservice to ourselves. You know I have definitely, anytime I've tried to hold or hide out the realness of a particular feeling or of what's actually happening, I am not able to grow. I am not able to be the mother that I want. I'm not able to be the wife that I want, or to be the coach, the consultant, whatever it is, all the different titles in my life. So here's the nurturing the nature thing. Hi, Richard. Here's the nurturing the nature part of this, and then I will close out, and then Nolan and I will head to this memorial soon. And actually, before I share that, I want to say, for those of you who are listening and who have followed my journey with volunteer hospice work, I will be getting a new assignment, so I will have a new patient to love up on and to spend time with. And for those of you who have lost parents, aunts and uncles, just basically anyone who is a beloved and who has meant a lot to you, I will share this about my volunteer hospice work because I feel it might be of service and of use to you. So my mom died unexpectedly, so I did not have time to say goodbye to her. Now, I remember having the idea of doing hospice work and thinking to myself, okay, so I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to my mom in that way. We had a very great relationship the last, months that she was alive, and really, really always, but definitely the last 9 months, if any of you have followed my sharing on that, definitely the last 9 months, because of course losing my brother was very difficult for her, but the last 9 months we were talking every other day, I was really her, a support, part of her support network, and vice versa. She was for me as well. But I remember thinking to myself, I wasn't able to say goodbye to her, but what if I could do this hospice work? And I hadn't even applied or anything, but what if I could do this hospice work? And though I didn't get to say goodbye to her, what if I could love up on another mom? In other words, what if I could give love and show love to someone's mother who they can't visit because they live in Colorado, or they live in New York, or they live in Florida, as did my patient G's family. They lived all over the country, so they couldn't visit with her very often. And so it was such a joy to realize, and to realize how we can help ourselves. In other words, how we can help ourselves but really be helping others in the process. So I did the paperwork. I was approved to start the hospice work, and lucky for me, I was able to give love to G for a long time. I was able to sit with her and feed her and love up on her and text her daughter and tell her how she was doing. And, and when she passed recently, I said to her daughter, it just was such an honor to love your mother. It was such an honor to love her. And it really did feel like I was not only supporting her, but that, again, there's always that confusing part of when you're in true service or in true purpose work, where you think to yourself, oh, right, I was doing this for someone, but in truth, it was being done for me. It was such a healing and beautiful what it was. It was probably a year. You know, it was such a beautiful and purposeful year for me. You know, it gave me so much. She gave me so much. So I ended up telling her daughter that as well. You know, I said, I'm not quite sure who gave more in this relationship, if it was her or myself. So I just wanted to share that for any of you who have lost a parent or have lost someone who, you know, who you really care deeply for, and it's been a hard journey for you through grief and through loss. You know, find someone to give that love to. You know, sometimes or many times treating a stranger, right? Hi, Sandy. Treating a stranger like the person you just lost is the very best thing. I mean, is literally the most healing, one of the most healing things that we can do. And you know, when I think about, you know, I was talking earlier about doing a disservice, you know, or how I feel like in my own life, Oma, my grandmother, would have been doing a disservice to me to not tell me the truth, right? And I do feel that way in my motherhood with Nolan. You know, just watching the type of person he is, knowing how much he can handle, really trusting that he can handle the truth. I thought to myself in the car this morning, I thought, you know, isn't that interesting that we... You know, that we really have an opportunity in these sort of harder moments. We have an opportunity to nurture our true nature. And let me explain what that means. So nurturing our true nature is, our true nature or our true essence is our soul essence, right? It's our soul. It's who we are, is that beam of light, is that spark of who we are. So it's not our bodies, it's not our physical bodies, but it's the energetic body, it's the spiritual body, it's the emotional body. And I think to myself, if our essence is that spark, if our essence is that soul, then again, when I was thinking about not taking Nolan to the memorial today, and of course now I'm going to, I thought, no, it's our responsibility. It's our regal responsibility. It's our spiritual right to nurture our true nature, which is the nature of our soul. In other words, we are here, you know, a lot of times we forget that we are something way more than our human body, you know, than our human selves. And if we are here on this earth in this lifetime to experience anything, it is to experience what it is that our soul wants to learn, what it is that our soul knows. And so that essence is our soul. And so if we can nurture, I mean, really the regal responsibility is to nurture that soul, nurture that essence. So instead of shying away from the hard stuff, you know, not bringing Nolan to the memorial, his soul has, you know, his soul has the opportunity, his soul has the, or gets to, you know, really be nurtured right now. In other words, we get to nurture his true nature, which is the part of him that says, I need and want to learn what life is really about. In other words, how big it really is. And life isn't just the life that we're living in this moment in these bodies. Life extends so far beyond these bodies. And so, you know, I think to myself, not just as a woman, as a human being, but as a mother, you know, I feel, you know, for me in this household, you know, in this house, that my responsibility beyond keeping his physical body, you know, safe and nurtured, and keeping his mind feeling or sort of supporting him to choose things that he loves, that so will keep him, you know, inspired and thriving in his life, that my responsibility is also to nurture his true nature. In other words, to nurture his soul nature, to nurture all of the different things, or to bring him all of the different things that his soul wants to learn. And so once I think of it that way, it's a very easy decision. It's a very easy decision to say, you know, no, I get to take him to the memorial because it's a part of life. It's a part of a soul's life to get to experience all of this. And so that is what we are going to do right now. And I just heard a knock on the door. So that is my cue to wish you all well. Hopefully this has, and I trust that this has supported you today. As always, enjoy your life. Let us all keep being a very real and regal, if you will, expression of the truth, of love, and really bringing our children, bringing all children, you know, along on this ride of, yes, of truth, but also truly of love, of trusting them, of showing them the commitment that we have to, you know, to trust that they can handle it, to trust that they can handle it. Why? Again, because they are not just human, they are soul. And those two things together help them handle it. You know, it helps them handle the truth. Yes, Sunita. Bye, Sandy. Sunita says, keep giving love and life permission to carry you. Absolutely. So, so with that, thank you all for watching. I will be in touch. Maybe I'll even share a written post or a live stream after the memorial. And do let me know how this landed. Bye-bye, everyone.